We're on to week 3, and I hope that this Mocha Mommy camp is going as good for you as it is for me. My kids are making connections to the books and having rich conversations about what they're learning with their dad, with their aunts. And so today we're going to start off with our read alouds. We're still focusing on segregation this week. And so the 5 books that I selected all touch on segregation. And so the first book that I have is called Boycott Blues. And it's how Rosa Parks inspired a nation. And we ended the week last week talking about Rosa Parks, so this kind of builds off of that. And so I just want to give you a quick preview of the book. The narrator of this book is a dog. And he just talks about Rosa Parks being a seamstress and how he remembers that fateful day when she got on the bus. But this book also speaks to what happened during the Montgomery bus boycott. So this book kind of picks up where our last book left off. So our book last week, The Boy on the Bus, just kind of from a child's perspective, what he remembers about Rosa Parks that day. But this book kind of takes us through what happened during the bus boycott. So that's one book, but Boycott Blues. The second book is called Pies from Nowhere. And this is a picture book that looks into the life of Georgia Gilmore. She was a hidden figure of history who played a critical role in the civil rights movement and used her passion for baking to help the Montgomery bus boycott achieve its goal. And so, again, she works in a diner during the time of the bus boycotts. She, like a lot of people, went to listen to Dr. King and wanted to figure out how she could support. And so she secretly bakes, and the money that they raise, they donate it to the bus boycott cause. The people never knowing like where this money came from. She wanted to keep it a secret. And then towards the end of the book, she then opens up her own restaurant and continues to cook for people, but this time uniting Black and whites. This was a very good, easy read that also speaks to the Montgomery bus boycott, but it kind of talks about like how everyday people did extraordinary things during that time and were able to contribute to the movement. Next, I have a new book that I actually had never read, but that a friend recommended. It's called Viola Desmond Won't Be Budged. And this is about Viola Desmond. She buys a ticket to a movie on the main floor. And you can see in the book, she decides that she wants to see a movie. So she steps up to the window and she purchases her ticket only for it to be on the main floor. And as she's watching her movie, someone comes and tells her that only whites can sit here. So you can see the movie attendant comes and asks her to move. And she's like, I ain't moving. And of course, they call the police. And I just thought this was a different perspective because, we always hear about Rosa Parks, but there were other people who resisted what they thought was wrong. And so Viola Desmond Won't Be Budged is a good one. Again, it is an easy read. It's not a whole lot of words that will keep kids' attention during that time. Then I have Freedom on the Menu. This speaks to the Greensboro sit-ins. And it's told from the perspective of a little girl. And I just want to show you the pictures inside. And it talks about how she wanted to help and contribute to these sit-ins, but she was only 8 years old, 8-year-old Connie, and like how her mother is telling her why she can't do these things. And so that's Freedom on the Menu. And then Freedom Summer is these 2 books have the same, I had to look for a second, because Freedom on the Menu and Freedom Summer both have the same illustrator, so the pictures are very similar. And so this is a story about John Henry, and how John Henry and his friend, John Henry is the little black boy, but the narrator is the white boy in the story, and he talks about how they're best friends. John Henry's aunt comes and cooks for his family and how much fun they have in the summertime. And so like here's a picture of them swimming in the pond together. They did everything together in the summer. And the aunt cooking for them. And at dinner one night, the dad says that the town is going to open the pools to everybody. And so they're excited. The little boy and his best friend are talking about how they can't wait to go to the pool and jump into the deep end and swim. But when they get there, the town has filled the entire pool with concrete or cement because they don't actually want the children to swim together. And so these are the 5 books that kind of speak to segregation, that continue the talk of segregation. So those are our read alouds for week 3. I can't believe we're already into week 3. Can you guess what we're gonna talk about next? It's toddler time, toddler time. Toddlers. Here's what we got going on this week with toddlers. So this week our letter focus is A. We're gonna, on day 1, we're gonna create a list of words that start with A. We're gonna practice writing letter A in our folder. So we've got letter A here. We are going to write letter A in our summer bridge book. We're going to practice writing letter A and identifying things that start with the letter A. Love this little summer bridge book. As you can see here, pictures that start with A, practicing writing letter A by ourselves. And to let them help, we're also going to make applesauce, because A is for apples. Now, if you've never made applesauce, it's the easiest thing you could possibly make in your entire life. All you need to do is get some apples, peel them, chop them up, put them into a crock pot, add about 1/4 cup of water into the bottom of your crock pot, sprinkle a little cinnamon on top, and close it up and let them get soft. When they are soft, you can take a hand masher and mash them, or you can put them in a blender and blend it, and you've got homemade applesauce. That's actually how I used to make baby applesauce for them when they were babies. Next, some activities for this week to keep these toddlers engaged and active. Last week I set up a track in my living room and I just had the toddler run laps until he couldn't run anymore. I put on songs for him to run with and he just ran until he couldn't. I think he ran for like 15 minutes straight. And I put a watch on his arm so he could count his steps when he was done. I mean, if nothing else works, that always works. Next, indoor volleyball. Who doesn't love volleyball? Well, simple enough. You get 2 spoons from your kitchen, 2 plates, tape the plate to the spoon so each of you has like a paddle, or is this like, not volleyball, tennis. Each plate attaches to a spoon. I was looking for my blue tape, like the painter's tape, but I don't have any. If you don't have any tape, especially painter's tape, or if you don't have anything to mark the floor, you can always improvise and put a shoestring. You could put anything to like divide a space in half. So like your toddler is on one side and you're on the other. You blow up a balloon and hit it back and forth. Look at that, volleyball. One of the other activities I have this week is back to our sort. The measured mom doesn't have an A, so last week we did G, so I pulled up G and L as a review. Our art activity this week is going to speak to one of our books for next week. It is rock painting. Yay! Let's get dirty! We went on a little bit of a nature walk. I went outside and had the kids pick up a couple of rocks. We've already started this. So they picked up the rocks and they painted one side. You have to let that side dry and then flip it over on the second side. So the toddler was very excited about this. So he painted one side one day. And we painted them outside actually. I got an old sheet, laid it on my porch. You can do it in the grass, you can do it anywhere. They painted the top part, we let it dry. The next day I found this is an old shoebox top, and laid this on the table, and he painted the other side. So now we've got these. Next week we're going to use these to put words on them because it goes with our book about big words. And so those are our toddler activities. I would love to hear what's working for you. What activities have you been using this summer with your kids? Drop it in the comments below. I'm always looking for new ideas. I would love to include it in one of my week reviews. And then plugging Target. They're about to put school supplies out if your Target hasn't already, but in the dollar section I found these booklets. There are 8 of them, and it's called My Book of Stories. So like I said in like my very first plug about my kids, my 8-year-old's very lazy, and so this will allow us to also, like, him to pick books of choice, draw a picture, and then there's lined, I think it's like 3 pages of lined pages inside for them to kind of like write about their book. So I got a book of 8. We're not going to use all of them. I'll probably share some of those books. So if you're looking for something to do with the bigger kids in terms of, you know, recording the books that they're reading, Target. Finally, this week for movies, I don't want all of the movies that they see in the month of July to be heavy topic movies. So we will watch Remember the Titans, which is a story about a football team that is dealing with some segregation issues that we will kind of make a connection to what we're learning about this week. I also want to spend this summer showing my kids movies that like stuck with me as a child. Some classics like The Karate Kid, the original one, The Goonies, The Last Dragon. Fun movies that kind of just like speak to your childhood. So this week, those are the things that I have lined up. We will continue with our science kit and our science experiments. Mason will pick yet another Who Was book. I decided last week, I told you that we were reading Harriet Tubman, but then it was time for me to introduce that book to him, and he wanted to pick something different. And so I basically laid out a bunch of Who Was books that still kind of touched on segregation and civil rights and let him pick. So he ended up picking Jackie Robinson. So if you have a wide range of books to choose from, let them pick as long as it talks to the topic that you're talking about. Next week we will get into protest and voting rights, and I look forward to having you back. Like, if you haven't already, like and subscribe this page. Thank you for watching. Until next week, moms, keep your head up. You've got this. Anything you get done this week is better than not doing anything at all. Have a good one.